So, I don't believe I've given an official welcome to my new setup, but welcome to my new setup! Now, this video is a bit of a transitional video, so some of the footage will be in 720p and some of the footage will be in 1080p, so you might see a bit of quality discrepancy. Also, it doesn't actually involve my new backdrop, which I've just recently purchased. That'll come into effect later. For the next few videos, things are going to be a bit off, but once that's all sorted out, it'll all make sense. Now, let's talk Studio Series. By this point, we all know what it is. Everybody's bought some figures already. This video was meant to come out ages ago, but I just got bogged down, and by this point, everyone already owns everything. But since I've already filmed the footage and already recorded the audio, I might as well bring it out anyway. Still, I don't really think people understand just how important this event is. Back in the day, once a toy line was finished, any characters in that toy line that weren't in the next movie were pretty much done for. Either they were dead or written out, and that meant no chance of getting any more toys. Plus, with the ever-shrinking popularity of the movies, especially with Age of Extinction and The Last Night, many characters don't even get toys. Yes, many of the Last Night characters were simple repurposes of other movie characters, just with a few minor CGI model tweaks, but come on, I think everyone's still clamoring for an onslaught at this point. Not to mention that even in the original trilogy, some of the toys haven't aged that well, particularly from the first movie. Thankfully, Studio Series seems to be here to rectify that, for a few figures. Do we really need another Ratchet? Do we really need another Dredd? Is another Optimus that necessary? I thought we already did a good Starscream. I mean, these are all great figures, but do we honestly need to redo them at this point? That said, today's topic is a long time coming, and I think a lot of fans are going to be very excited for it. Or at least they would be if it wasn't for the transformation. And of course, Stinger's here too, which is, great. Now, are these figures worth it? Well, you'll have to watch the video to find out. However, I do want to preface, this figure is not worth the hate that he got. Honestly, I don't see the point of the hammer in this at all. In fact, if you have any hammers aimed at the screen right now, just get them out of the way. I think I'd prefer if you just watch the whole video. So, let's get going!
Starting off with the more controversial choice, Bumblebee is sporting his classic Camaro vehicle mode for the first time since the first movie, aka the one I never watched because it has the least amount of robot screen time. In this mode, there's a lot that works and a lot that doesn't. I love the overall shape here. The more blocky shape works wonders, and it's a nice breath of fresh air after the millions of newer versions that we get every year. The sculpted detail at the front is striking. I especially love the front area of the windshield, which is brought to life even more with well-placed paint apps, which thankfully haven't been skimped on. Whilst they didn't go nuts, for this kind of alt mode they didn't need to. The paint apps work surprisingly well here. Sure, they could have added some gunmetal to the grille instead of it being all silver, but overall it's a damn fine job. They even painted the hubcaps. Or rather, they moulded the wheels in grey and then painted the tyres. Interesting technique. I'd love to see it appear on more figures, particularly in the Generations line. Unfortunately, the paint's not all hunky-dory. When it comes to the colour matching on the windshields, it's pretty atrocious. I get that it's pretty difficult to get yellow paint just right, but this is just ridiculous. Also, the underside is trash. In fact, I'd say it's even worse than the Nitro Bumblebee I previously reviewed, which I won't show because I actually did manage to sell that piece of shit off. Overall though, it's definitely way better than that sad attempt. Now, ordinarily I'd show off size comparisons separately, however this version of Bumblebee is especially small. Many even consider his size to be an issue, as it's so small that it might not even justify the inflated price tag. However, here is where I provide a counter-argument. For years, Hasbro has skimped on plastic and paint on certain figures to allow for higher budgets on others in the wave, and Bumblebee usually gets the short end of the stick with that. That said, here it actually makes sense, considering the line is going for highly accurate robot mode scale. Granted, it means the vehicle modes won't exactly match up, but overall I can see what they're going for. Do I think it's worth the price tag anyway, though? Well, for that answer, you'll have to wait for a bit, after I've messed around with Stinger.
Also, I forgot to mention, but in vehicle mode, the gun actually stores in the back here. It's not the most solid of weapon storage forms because it's fitting in between the crack there, and it's not a Combiner Wars style where the peg is on one side of the crack. And it looks as stupid as it sounds.
We all know Age of Extinction's script is by far the messiest of the series. Yes, even after that one. As the swan song of shit only Aaron Kruger could provide. Thanks for ruining Ghost in the Shell while you're at it, by the way. My guess is they needed to fill time, so they were planning on putting Wasp in the movie, as they already had a bunch of animated callbacks in that film. Then, and again this is just speculation, the car company most likely didn't have a green car, so they renamed the character Stinger and called it a day. If you think this isn't so common, clearly you haven't been paying attention. I assume his inclusion was last minute, as not only was he a repurpose of an already new Bumblebee model, which makes no sense because why would Bee have taken the new form of his clone when he obviously hates him, and he never got a toy outside of a redecoed Takara exclusive that somehow made its way to Australian Toys R Us. I'm definitely glad I skipped that though, as Stinger finally sports his sports car mode. No, I'm not going to bother to Google the actual car name, is it really that important anyway? Regardless of whether it is or not, this car mode is sexy as f***. The dynamic curves on this thing honestly haven't been done better in any mainline Transformer recently. The red is rich and deep, with a nice shiny finish to it. The black has a tint of gunmetal to make it pop. He may have less paint overall when compared to his rival, sadly not even sporting taillights or hubcap distinction, but the paint that is here stands out extremely well. I wouldn't say less is more, but I would say that more strategic paint applications give this figure an edge. Hell, even the underside doesn't look as bad, although given his tightly packed robot mass, this does provide my only main flaw. See, he comes with 4 shuriken, I think. My weapon knowledge is pretty limited. The only good way seems to be to use the ninja blades, or whatever they're called. I'm sure some weapons nerds will correct me in the comments section.
They're called scythes.
But they ruin the rolling action. And they're supposed to store on the underside of the vehicle mode, but sadly they just don't. There isn't enough clearance to allow all 4 of them to remain there. 2 can stay on just fine, clipping onto the back of the scaffolding that's nicely pegged in there, but the 2 side pegs are too low. God damn it, where did I leave the 3rd one? Where did I leave the 4th? God damn it, where did I leave the 4th shuriken? It's under here somewhere? No. Ah, for f***'s sake, this is gonna make me run out of camera batteries. I mean, sure, you could just store the weapons in a box somewhere, but since they tried to allow for a weapon storage, it would have been better if they actually followed through with it. That's the only major complaint though. I guess one could argue that the sides are a little messy, but it's such a minor nitpick. One thing that does strike me as odd is the exhaust port arrangement on the back here. I'm not sure if it's accurate or not, but it just looks weird. And when you put it in the robot mode, well, you'll see. For a size comparison, as you already know, Bumblebee is fairly small. Stinger is also slightly smaller than most movie deluxes, but given his rivalry, it's understandable. I wouldn't worry about these figures specifically being undersized. I mean, have you seen the size of Grimlock?
Bumblebee's transformation is somewhat problematic because when they designed it, they didn't think about the clearance of the windshield. It is the most notorious part for popping off on the figure. Regardless of what QC issues this figure may have, which I seem to have gotten off scot-free with, that part always seems to pop off mid-transformation. Is it going to be difficult? Yes, but it's not impossible. And this figure definitely isn't deserving of a hammer because of this one tiny issue there. So, the first thing you want to do is basically take these side bits out. Then that way, you can grab this section and split it. You want to split it, you don't want to pull it straight down, because that is one of the many things that undoes the windshield. And once these are out, it becomes a lot easier. You then basically transform the arms, so we're essentially going into a girl walk mode. And that was my fault for pulling off the wheel. You pull the wing bits out just a little bit, not all the way, otherwise that'll pop off the windshield. You then go under and you grab this, and again, now this is falling off. Yes. But that is, again, my fault. That's not to do with the figure itself. You're going to want to bring that down. And once that's out, that fits. Yeah, this piece is very loose on mine simply because I tried to yank it out thinking that this was the cannon arm side, and now it's permanently loose. That's kind of a blunder that I made there. So again, you take this side, you pull it out, that allows you to bring out the wing and pop out that. And then that is when you can see this entire windshield section is now free to fold up. And now you can transform the rest of the figure as normal. You bring down the chest section and fold around the head, just like the Nitro Bee, only looking much better. You angle the side bits of the car up. You basically untab the foot. Make sure this is all the way up here. You fold this down whilst folding this side part inwards. And then you fold that on the side there. The foot folds in and actually pegs in as well.
you can see when you fold it in, there's a little peg on the side that keeps everything locked into place. And I think when people are complaining that the feet don't tab in just like the Wave 3B, which this also takes heavy inspiration from, that's their main problem. They're not locking it in. So again, you open up that. You untab that and start to fold it out whilst folding this around. And when that happens, you can fold that around. That folds in. The windshield part folds in. This part folds out to the side. Feet collapse and go in. And he stands pretty well, which is quite good. And now I can go around here, fold up the backpack nice and securely. It's a pretty clean backpack comparatively to other Bs. And then just like the Movie Masterpiece version, you can bring these down. And like so, we have a pretty good Bumblebee. He's not bad. And we can always add the cannon to him later. Now, onto Stinger. Untab the weapon part from the bottom and kind of fold it out like that. Ooh, looks like a stand. An enemy stand! First thing you want to do is you grab the side bit here. You got the entire top section. Disengage it. And the arm comes out there. You do the same with this side, but that arm's just a lot smaller. This part folds, well, these parts fold up. These bits untab. The entire arm section folds outwards. The legs also fold outwards. You bring the leg parts back, and that's one thing I don't like, where, you know, transformation bits fold partially, do a bit more than the rest of the way. Anyway, after folding out the feet, you want to fold that little bit in just a little bit. And this is where Jobby will really like things, because there's a lot of swivels in this transformation. First thing you do is lift that up, swivel it around, and then the entire section collapses on itself. You get these arms into place, swivel them back a bit. You take this part up, if it hasn't fallen up already, you rotate it around, or swivel it around. I don't know why the head's backwards, you don't need to have the head backwards. And then you put it on the top. You may notice that he's coming together quite well. You just have to take the arm part around, fold it in on itself, and then make sure this little doohickey is facing straight, like so. It all kind of locks into place. And then you wonder, well, where do these go? You can put them here, but then he's got this very weird, you know, profile. It looks okay from the top, but, you know, if I were to lift it up a bit, he's got very low shoulders. So what I like to do is I like to take these, fold them inwards, and he has a much better profile. And like that, we have our two deluxes. It's been a while since I've done two deluxes within the same review, and altogether I think that went pretty well. This guy, I kind of like his transformation a bit more, in spite of me being a bit of an idiot with the arms, but it is possible to get it without the windshield popping off, and that is the biggest issue. This guy has a more solid transformation, but I don't know why I don't really like it as much. I don't know, it's just me. Maybe I'm just a complete bloody asshole about it. Bumblebee's vehicle mode may have been pretty fun, and hell, even his transformation isn't absolute. However, once you get to his robot mode, I'm not really sure it's worth it. The painting's great for what it is, and I don't really think I've seen that much sculpted detail on a figure in ages. However, in the end, something just feels bland. Maybe it's the lackluster face with the dead eyes, maybe it's the disinteresting proportions, maybe it's the hollow chest, although to be honest it's a lot better than Nitro B, and most of the time you can't even see it. I think in the end it's just that I've been spoiled by the Movie Masterpiece version. I mean, sure, for a figure 4 times the original price it's going to be 4 times as good, but this version already shares a lot of the same engineering with the superior model, so why not add a bit of that pizzazz? I will say this though, the figure's posing power is pretty damn good. They saw the opportunity for a waist swivel and actually added one in for once. Whilst many have ended up with pretty extreme QC issues, particularly on the hips and feet, my copy works like a charm. You also thankfully get that action element in this action figure with an easily swapped cannon accessory. Compared to the nightmare of swapping out Wave 3 Last Night B's cannon, this is pure perfection. You can also store the unused arm on the buttocks, which is funny to some degenerates somewhere. Overall, Stinger ends up faring better, but he still has his fair share of flaws. The beautiful colours carry through quite well here, and he has surprisingly little kibble for a toy to come out of the worst design philosophy in the movieverse. Unfortunately, most of that kibble went onto his arm. Seriously, what the hell am I looking at? It does look okay, but compared to the rest of the kibble management, it's just lazy. Also, after the complex series of pass shifting that Bumblebee has in his legs, Stinger doesn't even bother. It's not terrible, and it provides a nice solid heel for posing, but that comes at the cost of rather hollow, almost claw-like sections. As good as the paint is on the rest of him, none of it ended up on his face. The sculpting here is amazing, yet none of it gets to shine and gets lost in the red plastic. Another place you could get lost is the hollow chest. They say if you stare at it too long, you'll be cursed to only read Kiss Plays for the rest of your life. Fortunately, from most angles, it's not really that big a deal. As for the weapons, they store away on the same scaffolding you saw under the vehicle mode. It's a little far away from the body, but it does get the job done. I'd go as far to say that Stinger isn't complete without them. And yes, he can wield them. Like a pizza platter.
Seriously, Luigi, this figure is missing Italian hands. Although I guess Dino wouldn't like that. Oh wait, Dino's dead! Ah ha ha ha! Wahoo!
Oh wait, so is Stinger. The final oddity that comes with this figure is a little mature, so just a heads up. On his crotch plate, he has 4 guns. I mean, I've heard of some people calling their member a shotgun, but this is just ridiculous. In terms of articulation, as I said earlier, B is packing quite a bit. You've got a ball-jointed head, which sadly only acts with the range of a swivel. His shoulders are ball-jointed, and you get the standard bicep swivel and elbow bend. Sadly, the gun arm doesn't rotate, but it's not the end of the world. The waist swivel is greatly appreciated, and it works mostly unhampered, which is a surprise given the hefty backpack. As usual, you get ball-jointed hips, thigh swivels, and a 90-degree knee. The feet also have some hinges, and they can be helpful at times, but sadly there's no ankle tilt. On a deluxe though, it's no biggie. Stinger's head is also on a ball joint, and it has far more range. The shoulders are on ball joints too, however you have to position the shoulder armor up to fill in the gaps, otherwise it looks off. There's a standard bicep swivel and a 90-degree elbow, but unfortunately he lacks a waist swivel. Everything from the hips down is bare necessities, with ball jointed hips, a thigh swivel, and a 90-degree knee bend. Size-wise, as said earlier, they are a little small. It's not that bad in the grand scheme of things, but it's definitely something to keep in mind.
I guess the main question is Bumblebee worth it for the price? If he were $25, I would have said yes. But he's not $25, he's $35, sometimes even $50 at some places like Toy World. Thank God that doesn't exist in New South Wales. At $35, there's just something missing. Yes, the sculpting is fantastic and the posability is next to perfect, but after you factor in the transformation, which is perfectly fine for me, but for other people, you know, I mean, it scared Michael for God's sake. I mean, that's an achievement. And then you also factor in the lack of paint. I don't see a reason to get it. And don't forget, there's plenty of rumors of a movie masterpiece version of this design anyway, so why would you buy him? Even if it doesn't come out, the regular movie masterpiece is just fine. If you can get Stinger though, then I would definitely recommend it. Honestly, he's one of the best deluxes I've had in ages, with an utterly perfect vehicle mode. The posability could be a little better, but you know, a lot of things could be better at the end of the day. You could also use a lot more paint, but the paint's far more strategically placed than Bumblebee's, and it pops a lot more. If there's a figure I want to put on my shelf at some point, it's going to be this guy, not Bumblebee. Once again, maybe just because we've gotten way too many Bumblebees at this point. And maybe it's because I've just been spoiled with the movie masterpiece version. But Stinger kills it. So you better get him, because this guy is selling out pretty quickly. Hopefully my next proper review will involve full 1080p compatibility, but for now, I've got some other videos that have already been filmed that I need to get out. Hope you enjoy them when they come out, and I'll catch you next time.
We don't notify all of your subscribers, right? We notify all of your subscribers who have rung the bell, and then your most active subscribers after that.
Okay, so we try to notify the people who we believe would be most likely to tune in and watch your content.
That's right.
While it's live.
That's right.
While not necessarily overwhelming and spamming all of your subscribers with these notifications.
That's right.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. That's what we see our users want.